Yes.
Angela Husky Grooms,
Yes.
Rich Lloyd, Crystal Ottinger,
Yes.
Norman Smith.
Yes.
All right, that carried. Next item on the agenda is budget amendments and transfers for the county. And you should have-
Okay.
Well,
You should have those. The first on the list is the sheriff. There is just a few small transfers at the very top there for revenues that have come in. Then you have one fairly large transfer that is for 3 grants: alcohol enforcement, network coordinator, and teen driver. And that is to amend for 3 grants that the sheriff's department has gotten. The next one for 30,000 is for a criminal justice COVID grant that the sheriff's department has gotten. Then the next one you see there, it looks a little blurred out in the scan, but that is for 26,773. That is a grant that the elections commission got for COVID due to the multiple elections that they had and the COVID. The state awarded them a grant to help with some of their expenditures that they had. And then there is a small transfer for veterans. They're moving money into their travel line item. There was an in-person training that they did not expect to be in person this year, so that was a little above their budget. And that is all for the county.
does anybody have any questions for Heather or Derek regarding these transfers?
No, you said you got the 3 grants, the alcohol, the network coordinator, and the teen grant. Heather, those 3, and then 2 COVID grants.
Yes. Yeah, you have multiple grants that we're amending the budget for this month.
All right, thank you.
I move we approve these.
I'll second.
We've got a motion from Clay and a second from Angela to approve. We will do a roll call on this as well.
Clay Blazer,
Yes.
Angela Husky Grooms,
Yes.
Rich Lloyd, Crystal Ottinger,
Yes.
Norman Smith.
Yes.
All right, that motion approved. The next on the agenda is budget amendments and transfers for the school system.
That should have also been in your packet, and I believe Deborah is on the call if you have any questions for her.
Deborah, I don't know if you can hear me. One question that I had was just, I was curious on this ACE money. There were it's like $25,750 in other supplies and materials. What was that for? You're increasing that line item. You're on mute, Heather.
Never mind, I'm on mute. Deborah, I think it's *6 to get yourself off mute, but I'm going to try to get you off mute.
Clay,
There we go.
Clay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry.
It's a grant that Dottie from Coordinated School Health applied for. We're just now receiving it and getting it set up in our books. It'll be to purchase supplies and materials that she'll use with her program.
Okay, I was just checking. I mean, that was the only one that wasn't specified. I just wondered if there was anything specific. Just checking on that. No worries.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve these.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the school systems transfers and amendments, and I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Clay Blazer,
Yes.
Angela Husky Grooms,
Yes.
Rich Lloyd, Crystal Ottinger,
Yes.
Norman Smith.
yes,
All right, that motion carried as well. Thank you all. Next on the agenda, surplus property, and that was a list in your email as well.
Yes, you have a packet of 3 items that the rec department is trying to deem surplus property so that they can sell it. It's 2 vehicles and a mower.
Those vehicles are a 2004 Crown Victoria, 1999 Ford F-250, and a Husqvarna zero-turn mower. I'm guessing none of those run, or they're
None
not
of them,
anymore.
they need repairs to run, yes. I think they could run, but they don't currently run.
The cost of repair would be better to scrap.
Yeah, or they're not using them either. They're obviously not using them.
I know
so-
they replaced the mowers just recently.
Yes, we have replaced the mower a year and a half ago. It may be a little longer than that. They replaced the mower. So I think that mower has some severe repairs that need done to it.
Then I move we accept these.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the surplus property, so I'll ask for a roll call on it as well.
Clay Blazer,
Yes.
Angela Husky Grooms,
Yes.
Rich Lloyd, Crystal Ottinger,
Yes.
Norman Smith.
yes.
All right, that carried. Next on the agenda is the discussion of a possible IT employee.
Okay, I put this on the agenda. A couple of elected officials had talked to me about an employee that's IT available to help, especially now that we've had some COVID stuff come in. Realized we might possibly need somebody on staff just to handle small. I think everybody has some kind of contract with either BIS or Saratoga, but somebody on site, if you get something fishy in your email, you need somebody to look at that knows how to deal with fishy emails. If you get a virus, something that, or you just need something hooked up, or your printer keeps dropping off the network. Just simple things that you don't really want to call an IT person that's going to charge you a trip charge and everything else to come down here to look at. Now, this is just the beginning of this discussion. I don't even know that this is a current budget year thing. It may be something we talk about when we talk about the budget in a few months, but some items to consider is what elected official would they fall under, because they'd be servicing the entire county. How much are we going to pay them? What kind of credentials do they need? So this is just the beginning discussion for this, because we don't currently have a position like this. I can entertain calling some other finance directors if you all want and see what other counties have and what they do. Just trying to get some feelings and thoughts on if we even want to pursue this.
Not that I want to, just a suggestion. I think it's a really good idea. One of the things, and I hate that Deborah's, or I don't think Deborah's still on here. I know the school system has some people, and I just wonder if that's something that we can tap in and pay part of a salary for. I mean, I know, and I will go ahead and say, that I know that they're really overworked, but like, for example, with what you're talking about, it seems like that it's not something we're going to need all the time. So could we pay, like a portion of that and maybe, or help them get another person? You know what I'm saying? And like, and then be able to use that so that we always have access to somebody, and then it's kind of a duplication, because like they're forever in here having to install new programs. I don't think have the same kind of a contract that you all have with the, like with your each individual vendors. But I'm just wondering if that wouldn't be something and if they would even have an interest in that. I see some conflicts there too as well. Don't get me wrong. But based on what you're saying, like just someone that the elected officials could call would be great if we could do that through the school system, I would think.
Yeah, and I can talk to Deborah about that and see what they do. And then also talk possibly with CTAS and see crossing over like that, what kind of complications that would bring.
It just seems to me that like, that's one of those things where I think it was maybe hard. You're gonna need a full-time person, but it's almost like you may not necessarily need, we may not have enough for somebody full-time to do. I mean, does anybody else see that whole issue? I don't know.
I see what you're saying. We used to have like a part-time, but they had another job because they were part-time. And you couldn't get them here when you needed them. And it
Right.
never worked out for the county. This was even before me, but we borrowed them sometime at 911 and things like that. But a shared one, like with the school system, because like I've not needed anything. I don't know of anybody over here that's needed anything this week, possibly. So some weeks we would need them every day, especially if we've got new computers. Like we've got to get a new computer in my office and Reagan's office. And we would normally call Saratoga to hook us, like we can hook our computers up ourselves, but to get us on the network and everything and link us back up with the printers and things like that, we would have to call Saratoga. And that's an expensive call just for that. If we could either have somebody or share, do some kind of share program, we wouldn't have to, it would pay for itself. Just having that and not having to make that call to Saratoga, but it would have to be someone, because they're going to be in our server, and it would have to be, it can't just be Bob from down the road that dabbles in it, because it's our server and I'm not going to jail for Bob because he's on the server.
I agree with you. As far as the IT, we need one. I mean, I think the county needs one full-time. We could probably use one full-time just on our aspect, but if we had one at the county full-time where they know all of our servers and how everything worked, that way you don't run the risk. We obviously carry a lot of database information in our jail records management things, but I mean, just the little things that go on, because our server people call us and say, hey, you got a bug on your server, and then I'm trying to run Josh down and Josh trying to run it down to communicate. If we had somebody that really knows how everything was set up, that way, if you had a malfunction, they can come in and say, okay, you've got a malfunction, we got a backup. We pull up our backup and try to move forward on past instead of a complete shutdown. Because a lot of these surrounding counties, I think it's maybe Knoxville, got held ransom, wasn't it? Somebody locked in on their server and said, hey, we're not going to let you into your own server. Could we prevent that with an IT? Possibly, if we had somebody watching it all the time. But I think it ain't necessarily that you can prevent some of that to happen, but it's how soon you catch it is what the damage report is. So if you had somebody that was monitoring, that's what they did. I think them catching it right up front and said, hey, we got something, we got to address it. We've had it'll cause a little issue, but we've caught it pretty quick and we can address it. And it'll pay for itself way above and beyond there. I mean, we obviously don't want to pay any ransom, but I don't know that some agencies haven't paid ransom.
Did we get that extra ransom insurance that we talked about?
We have gotten extra ransom IT
Proper insurance.
yeah. I'm not sure the exact correct wording, but yes, that is what it is for. I have purchased additional coverage this year, and to try to keep us, because Derek, you're right, Knox County, something happened over there in Knox County, and also with our bond rating system, when we talked to them and they asked me several questions, one of their questions is, do we carry coverage? So that also helps with our bond rating, the fact that we do have that coverage. So
having an IT person, I asked Heather about that to get here. Having an IT person would be an additional safeguard to hopefully never have to enact that insurance, because we did get ransomed. We've had one instance of ransom here and in another department, but it was on a laptop that nobody ever used. So it was at the highway department, but it wasn't anything major, and there was no issues with it. Nothing was paid. It was just a bug.
Well, I mean, I think that, do we know, any of the other counties, what they have? Like, I know the city has somebody, right? Isn't that what Rocky does?
Yeah,
Isn't he like
Rocky
their,
Mountain City.
okay, that's what I thought. So, I mean, I would think if the city, I mean, that's the other thing. I know that they're kind of different, but I would think if they could find enough whatever to employ somebody, then I could definitely think that whenever you look at their sizes compared to ours, that we surely would probably be able to make use of that. So, I mean, I don't know. I think it's something that we definitely need to look at. And I think probably it will be next year on next year's budget. I think that's just another place that we need to,
I
kinda
think next year, Clay, like you're saying, next year, putting it in the budget, getting from a fresh start would be great, but the longer you wait, probably the worse off you could be. So, I mean, if
Hell
there's some
no.
funding, if there's some funding that's available in some budgets, current budgets, like I said, maybe some sharing or something with current budgets and current departments, if there was some, some funds there that you could share within this budget. I ain't looked at ours, but it's a possibility we could be a part of that. And I got CJ and Chuck here because this can be my last official meeting budget wise, but I said official, but we'll communicate obviously and continue just a budget meeting. But we, like I said, anything we can do to be a part of that, and we obviously are a big part of the need of that because I've struggled with it, have for a long time. So it would definitely be a need if we could get it going, and for somebody that we could tie to it, that would be great. Then, of course, I'll tell you on an IT person, salary is going to be an issue probably more so than anything for us. I mean, we got good benefits as a county as far as retirement and health insurance and things like that, but that salary base, an IT person, I mean, it's kind of a good value. They either save you money or you lose money by not having somebody you invested in there. So I mean, that's a hard one, but we're here if anything we can do to get it going. I know sometimes back, prior to Mayor Ottinger, it was tried to put one in. It didn't get anywhere, obviously. So here we are. But that's been 5 or 6 years ago. Well, that's been longer than that, I guess now. I'm aging, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. But definitely on the front needs to be addressed as imminent as possible. I think an IT person, once you get going, could really be an asset to the CLB also.
Tell
That's
CJ to
CJ
hush
talking
if he's
in the
gonna be in
background.
this.
Oh, that is right. He's lying.
I told him I was lying. So.
I've been talking about COVID. It's all right.
I think COVID did really bring to light the county's deficiencies in
Oh yeah.
IT and equipment and the installation of such, and not having proper hookups in our courtrooms for TVs and video and things like that.
Web cameras, we bought it all.
Yeah, and we limped along all through it, but it would be, and it's efficient right now, but it could probably, if we had someone who could set things up, it would definitely be easier and probably have less issues with the things we're trying to do as COVID continues on, or if the way of Zoom meetings and court hearings through technical avenues continues on, it may be more beneficial if we did have someone who could set it up properly.
I do agree.
Well, I just wonder too, then based on what Derek was saying, I don't know, Heather, maybe if you could sort of figure out for us, and I'm just going to use these, for example, if it would be something and not so much, but like maybe 50%, and I'm just coming up with random percentages, but 40% maybe by the sheriff's department, maybe, 40% by the court systems. I would think they would have that. And then the 20% maybe shared amongst other people and see what we could come up with, something that, and I don't know what that would be, but figuring out, I would think in particular with the courts and the sheriff, that's where you're that security aspect, not take anything away, but I don't know that it's that's nearly as important because you're with the records and kinds of things that you're keeping.
With the jail, which falls under the sheriff.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, I guess, primarily. you know, whereas some of the others are not going to be as important or having those. But then, you know, certain times of the year, somewhere like the trustee's office, I would imagine it's going to need that, you know, if it's January and February, we've got to have, you know, dedicated to them. So
Probably the other 20, maybe finance, mayor, trustee, because, you know,
mhm.
we've got all of our finances on our server.
But I, you
payroll.
But you know, I wouldn't hold off anything though, either off of those fee offices, like maybe property assessor, maybe be the, but all their stuff has to go online. I mean, you know, it's got a server that it's got to go to. I know they have to use that. I don't know. I mean, I think maybe you could divide some of that up, even like however many other offices there are left, divide it up. And I'm not even going to say 40% from the courts because I don't want to blast them with that. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to come up with some sort of a working order to kind of figure out. And it may even be one of those, if you think of everybody that if they could just come up with a little bit of money. I think the other issue though that Derek says to get a good qualified person, I think salaries where we're going to have a real struggle with that issue. And to be honest with you, to a certain extent, I don't want to like create a resolution and create, but I think it may even need to be something that's separate from other county employees, like, you know, as a different thing, because I think I don't know, whenever we start looking at like, you know, let's just say like in our fee offices, I don't want it to be something, it probably is going to need to be more than $35,000. And I think that's probably most of, you know, that's well above what most of our, anybody would come in because of the credentials that they would have. You know, I mean, especially when you think about security clearance too. I mean, that you're going to have for that. You don't, as the mayor said, you don't want Joe Blow, who's just fools around on computers, to have access to all of our, that could be really, an issue. And that, I'm just throwing it out there.
I wonder if any other counties contract that out. And it's not even a county employee. They contract out their IT services and they're guaranteed that somebody from that company is going to come. And then it's really you're contracting with a company, not even a person. Then you don't have to do benefits and nobody can say much about the salary. Because
I agree. And Clay, if you, for a second, the, who we deal with on our website, he approached about some contracted services. Robert Tucker, and his fees were, whew, they were quite high, the best I can remember back.
One of the ones I was thinking, I wonder if we could do this, Mayor, in the same realm that you're looking at. Maybe if we, and I know it may be an individual instance, but like where we just budgeted up to whatever that amount would be, and then we do it like the county attorney, who's not, you know, really an official employee, but that they just come in and they just give us billable hours.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I mean, based on how much that they use, because I mean, and I think as we all sort of know, then that way there's a cap at it. But kind of like is the case with our, you know, our county employee, like we just pay up to so much, even though like, I'm sure they could probably bill us for a lot more than they even do, just whenever you consider with where we're at. Because I know that's one of the issues we ran into with Brittany, just as an example. She just, I mean, like she just couldn't keep up with it all. That may be something to work. I mean, either private, I mean, I think private contracting would be good if we could have said company, but or even if we could find somebody maybe who just did that out on their own.
You look at both options, Heather.
Yeah.
And see which one may be the most feasible.
And I think another thing with both of those, even those options too, and I hate to say it, but it may even just be like who has an interest in it. You know, there may be somebody out there who, like, and I'm going to use maybe there's somebody here who's retired, who's just looking for, you know, something to do. They would come work. I mean, you know, would come work for whatever it is that we're looking at, and they don't really want to, like be a full-time employee. You know what I mean? Like they're not looking for the benefits or whatever else. They're just looking for, but they have all the capabilities. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll
I'll look around at other counties and see kind of what other counties are doing, and then also try to get see if there's any contracted services, anybody around close by that would be willing to do such a thing. And I'll also talk to Deborah about that option too. So.
Anybody else, any more discussion on a possible IT employee service? All right, next on the agenda is discussion of fund balance policy. And you got some stuff from CTAS on that.
I know this is the second time that I brought this up, but I feel like if we had something kind of in place before we started the budget, it would be helpful. Unless you all feel otherwise, do you want to try to go through the budget this year and set a fund balance policy as we go through it? I think it would be better to go ahead and try to have one so we know what we're working towards, but just trying to bring that back up on the forefront. I've looked back at that example off of CTAS, and I think it's fine how it is, except we just need to determine a percentage that we would like or a set dollar amount that we would like.
What's the consequences if we violate our own fund balance policy?
It might be an audit finding, maybe. I'm not sure. Or at least there's got to be something.
I would figure there would, but
it may be a problem when we go to pass our budget with the state, because the state will have this policy, and if we violate it, the state may have a problem approving our budget once it goes to them. I'm not really sure of the consequences, but I do know that this is a best practices from the state, and CTAS has told me both that the county should have a fund balance policy for their general fund and their debt service fund.
I don't know. I mean, I think I want to have the policy. What I would really like to maybe do if we could head in that direction is try to, and I know that this may seem strange, but if we could maybe sort of unofficially adopt one and let's operate a couple of years, like trying to abide by that, and then seeing, especially if we think like, for example, it's going to be an audit finding right now where we don't have that whole business, like maybe we're just going to say that we're going to set up a percentage and let's see how realistic that this is. Because one thing that I will say, that we just have to be mindful of, this next budget will be, I mean, it won't be necessarily the last one, but I mean, we're coming back up on election years again, and we just may as well think about that whole aspect. I mean, so you're going to see people who, I'm afraid it's going to make it harder to pass the budget. I mean, we already know we all know how much time, energy, and effort goes into putting a budget together, period. And then to just sit there and like have it come to the mercy of people who are not going to abound by like, this particular policy. Do you see what I'm saying? I feel like that let's see what this policy looks like. And then like, if we're going to say 4% or whatever percentage that we're going to try to keep in there, let's see how feasible that is. Because I will say, and I know Norman and I both have been here whenever we've had very, very, very small fund balances. I mean, way back even though I feel a lot more comfortable now, it's kind of hard to get out of your head that you can't just run it down to zero. So, I mean, I would like to sort of, have whatever that, I don't think it's financially or physically responsible, but I think that's a real hard one. So if we get people used to seeing that, like, okay, our lowest number is 300,000 or 400, whatever that number we pick, I just think if we could go unofficially with that and like let people know and then try to work through a couple of cycles. That's just my thought. Anybody else have good, bad, indifferent?
I agree. It makes me nervous to lock ourselves in, especially since we're not exactly sure with COVID. And not knowing, if we do it, I want to do it right. I want to abide by it. I like the idea of an unofficial one, as we maybe early on when we see what we're working with, find a good safe percentage, and maybe definitely a safe percentage unofficially, and work toward that goal and see if we're even able to do it, and then lock something in. Because if we're going to set a policy, obviously we don't need to violate it, especially the first time we actually do it. We need to make sure that we're ready to commit to that, and the whole commission's ready to commit to it.
And I mean, without even kind of looking at that too, Heather, I mean, the mayor I think just raises that good issue as far as us talking about, like, what impact COVID's going to have on us. I don't think, based on our numbers that we've had so far this year, and I've not looked at them specifically like you have, but, I don't think that we've seen just like drastic decline. I mean, I think our sales tax and, whatever else is about where it should be. I think where we're actually going to have more of an issue, I'm afraid we'll have more property tax delinquency this year, just because people, I mean, I don't know that we're going to notice it so much on sales tax, but where people just maybe aren't going to be able to pay, like, property taxes are not going to be a priority. Yeah, and whenever I say that, I mean, it's just like they've got to put food on the table, they've got to get their medicines, and they just don't have the extra to pay the property taxes. So they're waiting to see, something else that comes down the way. So we may have a higher property tax delinquency as a possibility.
And Clay, I thought of that when I was putting the budget together. So I have accounted for some delinquencies, but I also had a note here that I was going to put in at the end of the meeting, but I'll bring it up now because you're talking about it. Property tax collections in October was about 10% of the budget, which is the highest it's been in the last 4 years. Usually we only get 0 to 2% of the budget. So that is a combination of a lot of things. We've worked, very hard the last 2 years to try to get a budget passed in June. That allows the property tax notices to go out on time. When I say on time, the state likes you to have them out in October. And so I believe our tax went out. So that's really helpful with the cash flow. As Clay, as you know, and Norman, last several years, we've had to do a tax anticipation note. We didn't have to do that this year for the general fund, or we haven't had to so far. We did have to do it for the landfill, but not the general fund, which is a step in the right direction with the cash flow and everything. But again, as we get closer to Christmas and New Year's, I could see what you're talking about, Clay.
When I figured you had taken that into account, I didn't even know if maybe it could be higher. I mean, but now that's a good sign that maybe it won't be. I mean, I think a lot of our earlier signs, when we were under like the complete lockdown and whatever else, like, we didn't really see our sales tax figures go down. We sort of saw everything do pretty well. So I was just thinking, but we just still don't know. I mean, cause like, obviously we're in a very different phase, I think, now than we were in those months. So we just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And our sales tax is up. It's still, we're seeing an increase. I think for October's, it was up maybe 16%. I can't remember. We talked about it at the task force, but it was definitely up. But then, you hear talk from the president-elect talking about shutdowns again. So I don't know. With everything going on, I don't. If we don't have to lock ourselves in, I would like a trial run. Norman, what do you think? Angela?
I was trying to, no, I'm kidding. I agree with everything you said, especially like Clay said, this year is going to be interesting, and I don't want to lock us into anything right now.
Okay, that's fine with me. If y'all don't care to kind of think about it and get an idea of a number that you want to be our practice number, so that in March, when I start trying to put together a budget, I can kind of play with that and start working us in that direction. So maybe in our January, February meeting, we can kind of get a good play number, if we want to call it a play number, so that when we start working on the budget in the spring, I have something to work towards.
Just as we're talking about this, because you do say you want a general debt service fund balance, you want one in there too.
Yeah, and that one isn't as much of a concern because our fund balance in the debt service is pretty much what that example said anyway. So I'm not worried about the debt service fund balance policy as much as I am the general fund.
Okay, well, the only reason I even brought that up when we're thinking about that, when Scott from Cumberland Securities was talking about if we're going to go in debt for jails, schools, whatever, in order to keep costs down, if you push it out till our debt falls off, say you want to start borrowing money in 2024, 2025, you might have to dip into your debt service some, because you got those 3 years there, 2 to 3 years for the construction of something, and you might have to dip in debt service. So we would want to make sure you didn't set anything too low in case that were to come about, if anything happens with borrowing.
Yeah, and I know Scott has told that to the commission as well, but he is very mindful of our fund balance. And even when he says that, he goes, well, I don't want to take, he always caveats it with, I don't want you to take too much, he tries to be protective of our fund balance as well. So,
Yeah.
I don't think he would just burn through it all. So,
No. All right, any more discussion on the fund balance policy? Other than be thinking of our magic numbers. All right, Heather, do you have anything else for the committee?
I do not.
Anybody have anything else? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Thank y'all.
See you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek.
See y'all.
Thanks, CJ.
Hey, I'm coming by tomorrow, Heather.
Okay. Oh,
Ah,
CJ, I'll call you.
calling me.
Yeah.
That's all.
Thank you all.
Thank
All right,
you.
bye-bye.
Bye.
I saw him another day.